Here are the top stories for today, December 3, 2020. All 17 Metro Manila mayors voted against a proposal allowing children at the malls. A government lawyer explains that taking photo of NPA cadaver is part of the documentation process. Skyway contractors are ordered to pay fines for violations. And let us find out who are helping Davao address its rising COVID-19 cases. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The Department of Health maintains it is against the resumption of face-to-face classes as COVID-19 infections remain.
Sa hanay ng mga probinsya, ang highly urbanized cities and independent component cities, halos wala ng lugar na zero cases for the last 2 to 4 weeks. Lahat yan meron. Except for Batanes. Batanes lamang ang isa sa probinsya na nakapagtala ng zero COVID cases for the last 2 to 4 weeks. So, yung ating pong policy sa ngayon ay patuloy na no face-to-face classes.
Meanwhile, MMDA General Manager Jojo Garcia announces that the Metro Manila Council, composed of the mayors and MMDA, will not allow minors to go to shopping malls. This after having a discussion with health experts from the Philippine Pediatric Society. This means the age bracket for those who are allowed to go out remains 18 to 65 years of age. The health department is also not in favor of allowing children at the malls.
Ang position namin hindi nagbabago. Agad sa mga area, we discourage that, dahil meron pa rin risk. Tandaan natin sa 9 na buwan na ating karanasan sa COVID-19, ang dami natin bagong mga impormasyon na natutunan. At isa dito ay halos mga 3 to 5% ng ating total infected cases ay sa mga bata nangyari. So hindi po sila exempted sa hawaan. At pangalawa po, posibleng hindi nga po sila magpakita ng mga malubhang sintomas, ngunit sila naman po, dahil yung COVID mapupunta sa ilong, sa lalamunan, kapag nagsalita, yumakap kay lolo, kay lola, kay tito, kay mami, yan po, pwedeng sila din ang maging sanhi ng pagkalat at magkakaroon tayo ng mataas na infection rate. So, yan pa rin po ang ating posisyon. We discourage this. Wag na po lumabas ang mga bata.
The government is open to the resumption of peace talks with the Communist Party of the Philippines' New People's Army. But Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana clarified that the group must show sincerity. Lorenzana likewise challenges the Makabayan bloc to renounce the CPP-NPA or its armed struggle if they really want our country to progress. On the issue of alleged discretion of the cadaver of Revelin Culyamat, Lorenzana said they are now coming up with guidelines on the publication or presentation of photos of fallen NPA fighters. This was after photos of soldiers posing with the remains of Jevelin Culyamat circulated. What was not seen was how the remains of Jevelin were brought on foot by soldiers to the town and turned over to her family. Lorenzana said he does not approve of soldiers posing with the remains of fallen NPA fighters. Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo defended President Rodrigo Duterte, who earlier identified Makabayan bloc organizations and their dynamics with the Communist Party of the Philippines' New People's Army. Goss said the president is privy to information about leftist groups given his experiences as a former mayor of Davao City. During his weekly talk to the People address on Monday, Duterte denied the government is red-tagging Makabayan bloc organizations. The president said he trusts the military's assertion that the groups are mere fronts of the CPP and the movement is only bent on destroying the country's democratic institutions. Senator Goss said he personally does not want to see Filipinos killing each other, and armed struggle is not the solution to achieving lasting peace. For the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, The shared military photos showing firearms and subversive materials recovered from the New People's Army and the corpse of slain NPA rebel Juvelin Kulyamat is part of the military's documentation in the aftermath of an armed clash. Here are the details.
Contrary to a few quarters' claim, the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict or NTF-ELCAC says a photo which shows a cadaver of NPA rebel Juvelin Kulyamat as well as the recovered firearms and subversive documents are all part of the AFP's documentation. According to NTF-ELCAC spokesperson and lawyer Gabriel Villanueva, the Armed Forces of the Philippines is clear that it is part of their protocol to document casualties, recovered items, and other pertinent details of an armed encounter should the circumstances permit. He said the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner recognizes casualty recording as an important and effective means of enhancing the protection of civilians in armed conflict situation and elsewhere. He said he finds it confusing, if not appalling, for the Commission on Human Rights to say that they could not find good reason in posing for photos with the lifeless body of Juvelin along with the seized firearms and communist flags. He added that though the AFP has recognized that the photos should not have been shared publicly, the pictures per se do not violate any law, international norm, much less does not amount to the desecration of a corpse. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muaje.
President Rodrigo Duterte has appointed musician and businessman Ramon R.J. Jacinto as his advisor for telecommunications. This comes after Malacanang urged telecommunication companies Globe and Smart to improve their services. In his penultimate State of the Nation address last July, Duterte gave both telcos until December to improve their services or get shut down. President Rodrigo Duterte signed Jacinto's appointment paper on November 25. He will have the rank of secretary. Meanwhile, a former Cabinet Secretary Leoncio Jun Evasco Jr. was appointed presidential advisor on streamlining of government processes. He also has the rank of secretary. Evasco, who was a former priest and New People's Army member, stepped down as Cabinet Secretary to run for governor of Bohol in 2019, but lost to then-House Deputy Speaker Representative Arthur Yap. Prior to his appointment as presidential advisor, he was head of the Housing and Urban Development Coordinating Council in 2016 after Vice President Leni Robredo resigned from her post. He was also named as member of a panel formed to dialogue with the Catholic Church and other religious groups in June of 2020. Still to come, President Duterte approves the emergency use authorization for COVID-19 vaccines. And Skyway contractors are ordered to pay fines for violations. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You are still watching the PNA Newsroom. President Rodrigo Duterte has approved the emergency use authorization for drugs and vaccines against coronavirus disease 2019 and authorizes the Director General of the Food and Drug Administration or FDA to be on top of it. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. earlier endorsed the proposal, saying it will guarantee 30 to 50 million doses in the country by next year. In an interview, FDA Director General Eric Domingo said his office will allow COVID-19 vaccines that has shown 60% and above efficacy. Among these vaccines are Moderna, Pfizer, and AstraZeneca. The president earlier approved the recommendation to make advance payments to suppliers of COVID-19 vaccines. The Department of Labor and Employment has ordered the contractor and subcontractors of the Skyway extension project to pay the administrative fines for after an investigation found several violations of the occupational safety and health standards. In a 7-page order signed by Regional Director Sara Buena Mirasol, EEI Corporation general contractor and subcontractors are ordered to pay the fines ranging from 80,000 up to 170,000 for each day of non-compliance with the safety and health standards. The contractors' violations are non-presentation of heavy equipment testing certifications for cranes and other heavy equipment. No specific work permits, no consultation management of traffic plan, no hazard identification, risk assessment and control specified to rigging and crane operations. No contracts for contractors and subcontractors, no employer's work accident and illness exposure report, and no safety officer's report for the accident. The Labor Department earlier issued a work stoppage order on the project following the death of a motorist and injuring several others after a steel girder fell on vehicles passing along East Service Road in Muntinlupa City. Eastern Visayas has maintained a high recovery rate in COVID-19 cases as most infected patients are asymptomatic or have mild symptoms. The Department of Health said 93% of the region's 8,783 confirmed cases have recovered since March. Nearly 99% of the region's confirmed patients are either asymptomatic or have mild symptoms. To date, the region has 518 active cases with an addition of 47 new infections. Meanwhile, 6 out of 143 towns and cities in the region have maintained their COVID-free status with no single case recorded since the start of the global health crisis. Despite the decrease in cases in the region for the past weeks, the DOH urged the public to remain vigilant and strictly practice the minimum health standards to break the chain of transmission, especially this holiday season. As part of tightened protocols amid the surge of COVID-19 cases, ILOCOS Norte has banned mass gatherings, including those in private homes and in parks. Here is our report.
The provincial government of ILOCOS Norte has banned gatherings of more than 15 persons for indoor and over 40 persons for outdoor after a sharp spike of COVID-19 cases in the past few days. Governor Matthew Joseph Manotoc urged residents to continue to avoid social gatherings, including those in private homes, restaurants, and parks. While Lawag is under localized modified enhanced community quarantine, the Provincial Health Task Force is appealing once again to all residents to stay home. As of December 1, ILOCOS Norte has recorded a total of 379 cases with 181 recoveries and 2 deaths. In Surigao del Norte, the provincial government has received 9.5 million pesos worth of hospital-grade personal protective equipment from the Department of Health and the Office of the Civil Defense. These would be distributed to all COVID-19 frontliners in the province and Surigao City. Among those that will receive protective gear are the Caraga Regional Hospital, Surigao del Norte Provincial Hospital, and the other medical and quarantine facilities in the province. In Davao City, the use of face shields in public places is now compulsory following an executive order from Mayor Sara Duterte. The EO corresponds to a similar policy issued earlier by the Department of Transportation, Department of Trade and Industry, and Department of Labor and Employment. Those guidelines compel private establishments to enforce the wearing of face shields with face masks in workplaces. Mayor Sara said the wearing of face shields is also mandated by the Interagency Task Force. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Late Kabagani.
In our business news, a lawmaker is pushing for the creation of an online market platform for Filipino creative arts, products, and services to support micro, small, and medium enterprises or MSMEs. House Bill number 8064 or the Online Pinoy Creative Act seeks to rapidly create a simple online market that is standardized and easy to follow so Filipino creatives could get back to what they do best. Leyte 4th District Representative Lucy Torres Gomez said the creative industry and economy is one of the hardest hit during the pandemic because the conduct of business mostly required physical contact and interaction. She said the quickest and most effective way to give them support is to give them back their sales venue online. The proposed law directs the Department of Trade and Industry to create the platform and provide funding. Up next, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte urges the New People's Army rebels to surrender and work for the government. And let us take a look at the healthcare warriors being referred to as warriors with a heart. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
President Rodrigo Duterte on Wednesday invited Russian President Vladimir Putin to visit the Philippines next year as soon as circumstances would allow. Duterte extended the invitation through new Russian ambassador to the Philippines, Marat Ignatievich Pavlov, who was in Malacañang Palace to present his credentials to the president. The invitation coincides with the 45th anniversary of the Philippine-Russian diplomatic relations. If Putin pushes through with a visit, it will be his first visit to Manila. Duterte has visited Russia in 2017 and in 2019. The president also thanked Russia for their offer to provide the Philippines with doses of Sputnik 5, their potential vaccine for COVID-19. Meanwhile, Duterte also accepted the credentials of 6 other ambassadors, namely Shambhu Santa Kumaran of India, Claudio Alberto Rojas Rachel of Chile, Titanilia Toff of Hungary, Imtiaz Ahmad Kazi of Pakistan, Juha Marcos Pico of Finland, and Ahmed Shehabeldin Ibrahim Abdullah of Egypt. The provincial government of Agusan del Norte is set to release sacks of rice to all its employees at the provincial capital as early gifts for the Yuletide season. Governor Dale Corvera said that provincial government workers will also receive sacks of rice on top of the bonus and cash gifts. The governor said all employees, including the regulars, job orders, the outsourced security personnel, and those in the janitorial services will receive a sack of rice each. Corvera thanked the employees for their continued services to the people in the province despite the threat of COVID-19. Meantime, he reminded the employees to continue to observe the health protocols, especially during the celebration of Christmas in their families and in their communities. A ranking leader of the New People's Army and 4 other rebels were killed in a law enforcement operation Wednesday in Lake Sebtu Town, South Cotabato. The operation targeted NPA leader Romeo Libron, reportedly the regional ordnance head of the NPA Southern Mindanao Regional Committee in the Davao region. Libron, who had standing arrest warrants for murder and several other cases, was killed in a firefight that lasted about 20 minutes. 4 other suspects were also fatally wounded in the encounter and later declared dead on arrival. Operatives recovered assorted firearms, improvised explosive and bomb-making components and documents, and other paraphernalia. Meanwhile, in Davao City, Mayor Sara Duterte has asked NPA rebels to surrender and work for the government if they want to see the changes they wanted to achieve in their armed struggle. Duterte made the statement during the presentation of 11 rebel surrenderers and their firearms on Tuesday afternoon. 6 of the surrenderers belonging to the indigenous peoples group who turned over 34 firearms for IEDs. She also urged the surrenderers to help stop the NPA's recruitment of minors and young people. After President Duterte placed Davao City under General Community Quarantine or GCQ, the Department of Health deployed additional healthcare workers to assist in addressing the pandemic. This as the city's COVID-19 tally reached the 9,000 mark. 15 so-called warriors with a heart from Cagayan de Oro were sent to the Southern Philippines Medical Center on November 29. On November 30, 40 more nurses from Metro Manila and Central Visayas arrived in Davao City. 33 nurses and 2 medical technologists from Northern Mindanao will be staying in SMPC until December 14. The DOH Center for Health Development Region 11 also welcomed the arrival of the additional 22 health workers assisting in a 3-day aggressive community testing. DOH Secretary Francisco Duque III thanked the health frontliners for their dedication to the fight against COVID-19. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. All 17 Metro Manila mayors voted against the proposal allowing children at the malls. A government lawyer explains that taking photo of NPA cadaver is part of the documentation process. Skyway contractors are ordered to pay fines for violations. And let us find out who are helping Davao address its rising COVID-19 cases. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, check our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC13. And it is 22 days more to go before Christmas finally arrives. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day to all.